We are live.
All right, thank you. Okay, this is a School District of Menominee Falls Board of Education Student Services Committee meeting. There is a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at the board committee meetings, but there will be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee will vote on any item on the agenda, and a live broadcast will be streamed on the school district's YouTube page. To watch the recorded meeting, please visit our School District of Menominee Falls YouTube site. It is 6 p.m. and we are called to order in the Village Hall Upper Level Conference Room 3344-3345, Pilgrim Road, Menominee Falls. So welcome everyone, we have a full room tonight. Has the meeting been properly posted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I do need a motion to approve the minutes from the September 16th Student Services Committee meeting.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion has passed. All right, so we are gonna jump right into the 60-day update with athletics and activities. We have John here this evening. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So in order to get to the 60, we have to just kind of like look at the 30 a little bit. And I just want to talk about that. If you're not familiar with what we put together here or what I put together was a focus on communication, culture in the athletic and activities department, safety, and then development and strength and conditioning. So what I ended up doing is I broke that down as far as the strategies are concerned, and ended up presenting a culture audit to the athletic department. And then we developed a Menominee Falls Phoenix Way leadership team, looked at with an evaluation piece and with interviews and assessments, with our communication, and then safety with event management. And then also did an assessment of the current strength conditioning and the analysis of that. So the results were this. As you can see, we definitely have coaches that care and that are available. We have a lot of coaches that are in the school district, which is super encouraging. The one thing, and it was a collection of responses here from my coaches, that there was a lack of direction. Meaning that, you know, coaches in other sports don't necessarily work against, but they certainly are not working together. So they're kind of pulling in different directions, and just making sure that moving forward, there's a one direction, there's purpose in what we do and how we do it. And then there needs to be more consistency in regards to the communication piece, and then the systems that we're running and the routines. And like anything else, coaches are gonna want more space and more storage and better facilities and all those things, so that's obviously a concern as well. When we looked at the student athletes in the fall leadership team, what we got together was about 60 students right now. We meet on Wednesdays on early release, from 2 to 2:45 in the auditorium. Like I said, we meet for those 45 minutes from, and they're 9th graders to 12th grade. What we're looking for is building great leaders so they can positively impact and influence their peers and the overall culture. So the concept here is, you have to understand we have 44 teams here at Menominee Falls, just athletic teams. So that's ranging from freshmen, JV, and then varsity. So those are a lot of participants. With me coming in as a new AD, I barely know my coaches, and I definitely do not know the kids at the beginning of all this. That comes over time, that happens organically. When I do things like this, it allows me to really positively impact these individuals, kind of like a classroom setting, being a teacher. From here we can expand. I didn't want to get too big, and these names that I've gotten are from references from all the coaches. That's what it is.
Did you say how many teams, John? Did you say 34 or
44.
44.
Yeah, so we have 44 teams. I had 2 kids reach out today and say, Coach D'Amato, can I please be on the team? I said, absolutely. I sent them an invite, so we're good to go. So it's always gonna be those types of things where I think as time goes, I become more comfortable. I don't wanna get too big too fast. I wanna make sure that I do it the right way. And I feel comfortable at this number right now. So I'm really super excited about that, and I'll talk more about that as we go. The communication piece, incredibly outdated, hard to navigate through our systems and our website. Information seems scattered, needs to be more uniform, and it lacks appeal. So that was my assessment, and many others. Event management, we looked at that. We looked at our emergency action plan and how we navigate through that. Working with Liz, Brooke Jacoby ended up being one of our event managers. So working with Dan on this and with this initiative, having an event manager in the fall, winter, and spring. Super excited about that. When we got 3 events going on, I can't be at all 3. Having someone there to navigate it, to make sure that the EAP is getting taken care of, it's been really critical. And we're all set for the winter season as well with event manager.
This was a big change of Brooke Jacoby. I mean, just thanks to everybody here who we adjusted positions that were open positions and paid positions in order to make this work over time. And somebody with an administrative background degree in Brooke Jacoby, in order to be able to assist and be that person on site, you know, when Mr. D'Amato is spread or the principals are spread in other directions. So this is a great change, big change.
As far as our development and having a year-round philosophy on how we do things, it's just making sure and looking at that. We have basically 2 sports for the most part in football and baseball that we're training year-round. Spaces was obviously a major concern in coordinating this and making sacrifices on making this happen, and I'll get to that on the 60-day, but coaches that are willing to coach year-round as well, that's always a concern. And then location of the weight room, accessibility, stuff like that. So it's really tucked away, and you have to go through gyms in order to get to that facility and whatnot. So after 60 days, what I looked at is moving forward in the athletic department is we had our fall meeting. So I got all my coaches together, and I think it was incredibly important for us to understand the why and the how, and how this is going to affect them and what it's going to look like. So anywhere from our standards to our expectations, how we need to unify as a coaching staff, and share our athletes and have dual sport athletes and increase our numbers. So that was incredibly encouraging. As far as the leadership team, we continued with the Phoenix Way. We moved forward with a webmaster with Sarah Burling and the Donovan Group. Event manager, again, the duties, event schedule, that was all in play. And then the startup of the SAS programs, speed, agility, and strength. So as far as the results are concerned, the all coaches meeting was great, like I already alluded to, talked about the standards, expectations. The multi-sport athletes is critical with us moving forward as far as success is concerned. I'm in the process of right now, I got tennis done and I have golf done, and I'm sending out football tomorrow for postseason student athlete evaluations for all of our sports teams. So I can get a pulse on what's going on. You know, hearing from the students is incredibly important, and it's not a gotcha moment for my coaches. It's just looking for trends and looking for consistencies. That's what it is, and that's how we get better. Also, I'll be evaluating all my coaches and their assistant coaches as well. So as their seasons come to an end, that's part of my process and how I do things. Like I said, making weekly progress with the leadership team, it's a ton of fun. I think we're having a good time and learning at the same time. But on November 18th, we are hosting the Greater Metro Conference Leadership Summit here at Menominee Falls in the auditorium. So I'm super excited about that, about bringing 20 athletes from each school in. We have guest speakers that are coming in. The nice thing about me hosting it is I can have more than 20. So my plan is to get the whole leadership Phoenix Way team there for that.
I'm gonna go backwards a little bit too, Jack, because when you talked about the seasons, you also got in November. You're scheduling your pre-seasons already.
Yeah, I got that in here.
Too, so November 5th is another one that's gonna be.
Yeah,
So is
yeah,
that-
yeah.
Is that when you pull the families in? I was gonna say.
Yeah, November 5th, we'll do
A
that.
new event, and I think it was really valuable, so it's important to showcase that you did it for fall. I
Yeah,
think one of the things that was a key takeaway, that I had two fall athletes was talking about the difference in grade point average, talking about
Totally
what
right,
it meant to be able to be an eligible athlete, and
yeah,
it encouraged all the culture changes you're mentioning here,
Yeah.
make sure you're making the right choices and being a
Right.
leader. It helped parents have visibility into those expectations to reinforce those conversations.
we've
So-
had a lot of drivers at the high school right now and a lot of stakeholders that are really rolling up their sleeves, doing an incredible job with attendance, staying on top, using Power School, Schoology for communication pieces and holding our students accountable, our student athletes. In
I
this
know it was
breath.
new and a lot of parents thought it was a great idea, so.
Yeah, and I have it on there, on November 5th, I have Meet the Phoenix, that's a winter parent player meeting right here.
Okay.
And then during that time as well, I have my coaches meeting for all my winter coaches,
Okay.
again. But that's for me to really dig my heels in and talk about expectations and protocols, right? And then Dan's also gonna be meeting with our out of district coaches. So we're gonna get them a district email and he's gonna do Raptor training with them. So excited about that time as well on November 5th.
So they're more connected to our security protocols.
Yep.
That was one of the
Okay.
look fors, when Mr. Halverson was doing his security assessment.
So if you look at our communication piece, it looks night and day than what we had. If you look at our website, all of our team pages in the fall are all done. They have pictures, they have rosters, they have coaches' contacts. The clubs and activities are now organized, it's not under more, it's actually when you click on clubs and activities, it goes to clubs and activities. So we're working on the, yeah. So we're working on the layout and pictures and updates, but it's been a tremendous improvement. And kudos to Sarah Burling, she is phenomenal, she's working great with my coaches. All they have to do is get her the information and then she uploads it. And she's doing trainings on the side as well with VNN to better understand, just be more efficient and more effective. So, like I said, patience here, it's an end product at the end of the year, I ask you for that, so but it's night and day to what it was, and I'm excited about that. As far as event management, we're working on our spreadsheet right now, actually, Travis's brother, Luke Langer, does a phenomenal job working with him. So we're working on all the event workers for the winter season. Super excited about that, keeping it organized, keeping it systematic. I've got a great feedback from a lot of my workers because we send them the schedule, reminders, we send it to their email. They know exactly what it looks like. I send it to my coaches, busing schedule, all that stuff. So it's just a way to be proactive and to make sure, like, to troubleshoot before it's Panicville. Because when a bus doesn't show up because, you know, you had it scheduled wrong on the day of, it's stressful. When someone is supposed to work an event and they forgot, it's stressful. So any way that I can get that information out to those event workers, coaches, you get the idea. And Luke has been a huge driver, working and collaborating with him. It's been really, really effective. And like I said, the fall event manager ensures safety, communication, EAP, and obviously expectations from our students. So I'm a huge proponent of that. And then the strength and conditioning, it's a slow start right now, I'll be honest with you. It's slow, I'm used to that. Kids are transitioning, what is this all about? What does it look like? I have to pay, $50, it's a waiver. And the thought process behind all this is just that. We have the waiver, and with that, you pay the $50. The $50 is good for a whole full year. And you get a program, you get speed and agility work, you get strength and conditioning work, it's 3 days a week. And that $50 goes back to the coaches, okay, that are spending time working with these athletes year round. That's where it goes. Just give them a little stipend. It doesn't stretch too far, trust me, they're not getting rich by doing this. But it's a couple $100 here and there, so they get that stipend for their time. And if equipment breaks, which it does, you have some of that money as well for any kind of necessities, if something does get damaged, and then we can use that money responsibly.
These sorts of strength and conditioning programs are pretty common.
I love the idea, I think it's new, and so there's a lot of people, I have a son that does football, so he's used to the training year round.
Yeah.
And one of the hesitations is understanding how this works in conjunction with other programs that are in place.
Right.
And then we did hear from the golf instructor, regarding golf, hey, check it out, try it out, et cetera. So I think part of it's like wait and observe and see who's in it and
Totally.
whatnot, so.
And then, like I said, it's a slow start. Yeah.
Right.
So it builds momentum, kids talk, they get excited about it. Everything's organized, I just want you to know from that standpoint as far as how we're going to function. Once everything gets up and running, it'll be just fine. But I am encouraged by both genders, multiple sports being represented. And then, obviously, I'm gonna have to transition myself out of it eventually. Right now, I'm kind of running things, so, which is okay, I don't have a problem with that. I love doing that type of thing, but, you know, it'll be nice to kind of hand it off eventually to my coaches.
When you say it
So they
runs
can take it over.
year round, does that include summer too, or is summer a different schedule?
Summer will be, ran through the summer school,
Yeah.
okay?
Cause that
Okay.
increase it.
But as far as the program is concerned, it's gonna be an extension, yeah, through the summer.
Okay.
Which I'm super excited about, right? So,
What were the safety and the EAP differences that we've made from before you got here to now, or before you got here?
well, the only thing it's mandated now by the WIA, so before every single event, I need to talk with the opposing coach, our coach, and the officials, and walk through our EAP plan.
And I don't know
So
if
I send it to them,
I don't know if they were in compliance with that before.
I would highly doubt we were.
Yeah, it was kind of,
yeah.
say, typical.
I know when I came in, I put together one sheet for our indoor sports, stuff like that. And then I collaborated with Liz and she took off with it and it's outstanding, like outstanding. And I get those shared with me quite a bit from other schools, because if they're coming and we're the host team, they have to, you know, share their information and vice versa. So I see a lot of them that are out there, I'm letting you know, ours is very good. Yeah, very good, it's very detailed, she's outstanding, so.
And they can choose from those.
Yeah, I feel very, very good about things. And I know the officials appreciate that, from that standpoint. Just understanding, like, we're all set to go. And then I have I had Callie, she actually put it together for me, my assistant, but it's a front and back, and it's just a little card about this big that you can put in your pocket. It's got all of our phone numbers on it and stuff like that, and, just a one-stop shop. Just because when there is an emergency and it hits, you gotta go. And there's no time to think, it's pull out the card, look at it, follow it, and then move forward, you know? So, that's where we're at right now, so, you know, we're looking for optimization and after 90 days and really, you know, digging our heels in and, really looking forward to, the next chapter here and really, like I said, getting going with our winter sports and continuation with the improvements in our communication, continuation with the leadership team, the Phoenix Way, and bringing that summit here and having that session. I'll get some pictures for you guys. I think that'll be a pretty cool event.
That'd be a good spotlight for.
Yeah,
Too. It's
yeah, I think it'll be pretty good.
Yeah.
Right, you know?
And then, like I said, kind of a slow to go with strength and conditioning, but I really feel, this isn't my first rodeo doing this stuff. So it gathers a ton of traction, you know, as the weeks go on, and then once you're in, you know, November, you're really doing well. So it's right there. We're in a good place right now.
So to be clear, should I put the rodeo part of it?
And then one of the things I think that came up in our finance meeting before is you're also doing work on sponsorships as well.
Yeah, we got one in Woodman's right now, so it's a 1 year, but for 5 years, it's $5,000, so we're super excited about that. Working with VNN right now to get that on our webpage, but it's on all of our rosters, and then I'm getting a 4x4 sign made that we can put in our gym as well, so as a proud sponsor, and I'm super excited about that. So they've been outstanding, and like I said, I think it's a start of something that we're gonna really dabble into.
Yeah, the sponsorships, Caitlin and her team in the business department, I'd say by March, April, they'll have a sponsorship platform for our district that'll that'll be all encompassing. Athletics, activities, theater, everything. So there's some models out there and we're down the track with it. So we'll be bringing that to finance committee to get it started, make sure we get it approved through the board processes. But it's a sponsorship program that'll, be initiated this year, this will be the first year of it, and then we'll build on it over the years. How to pull in corporate sponsorships in order to start leveraging the resources in a high business area, which we're in. So that's something that we're pushing hard on in the background. But now that we're through final numbers, which those that are on the finance committee, we just received final numbers from the state of Wisconsin equalized property valuations last week. So now that we're through that and coming to our board meeting where those things are approved by the board as a whole, we'll be pushing into sponsorships and a couple of other big pieces
Sure.
that will start coming out.
With a really good idea of what we're looking at and what needs are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then slightly a dovetail, thank you for that, is it's come up a couple times regarding activity fees.
Yes.
So we did discuss that at finance earlier. Where we're at right now is roughly our fee. Lots of districts are catching up to what our fee is, but when you look at our athletic fee, it represents 25% of our total budget for athletics and activities.
Okay,
So what we challenge the finance group to do is, along with a lot of data from John in conjunction with other districts, et cetera, pull together updated district data, pull together sort of a fact sheet,
sure.
so that people understand the why, the scope of it, what it goes towards, things that we do that our coaches benefit from, so that we can kind of get a complete picture of what our costs are that are going into athletics, and activities, and then what we do that sets falls apart, that would resonate with that number. And then also talked a little bit about the fees that are increasing, that we have to pay, that make a
Sure.
pressure. And the fact is, it's interesting that the number is chatted about as much as it has, because it hasn't changed in the last 7 years.
Yeah,
So I
one big
Right.
note, just to use some big dollars from our previous committee meeting, and you can go out and catch the recording online, but our total fees collected was $189,248 exactly. Once again, $189,248. But our total operating budget for all, not just athletics, but activities, so everything, is $683,685. So the fees don't cover the expenses. I mean, that includes what we pay coaches and what we pay referees and all the different sorts of things. That's the 25%. So it's $494,437 that were coming from the general fund or operations in order to pay for that. So while I think the fee might have been a little bit high with respect to what people pay for fees 10 years ago or whenever it was initiated, by no means is it high anymore.
And what we've learned is, and I don't know what the dates were, but they did a comparison across all the districts. Some of those numbers are changing vastly, so it'll be interesting to do a revisit maybe in 6 months to see what other districts are enacting as they're looking at their fees, as they're seeing their costs go up. But it was interesting, I think you had indicated that one of the schools charges $400 for parking, where we charge, was it like $150 or something for parking. So fees are collected in different ways, and you can't just do everything in a single silo, so.
Absolutely, yeah, that makes
But
sense.
I asked our finance team to put something together, put it on our website, so then as all questions come in, we can link out, so then
Yeah,
hopefully
I
that
like
supports
it.
the question that comes
We have
here.
great information, took the time to collect it, and also get it out there and show
Yep.
everyone the why and.
But John did a really good job laying out the cost of things and where he's seeing some increases, and things that we do that keep our staff engaged in helping champion activities and be coaches, so
Yeah.
lots of good things to
That's
post.
important, absolutely, and I know that we had kind of touched on the possibility of looking at that maximum and, again, lots of options here to see where we end up making changes and how that'll help families be able to afford participation. And I think it's important to kind of mention too that there are forms and things that families can fill out if they do need help and things like that. So it's
Absolutely.
always important to kind of look at all those avenues for students to be able to participate and we're doing a great job as a district. Couple questions for you, John, before I let you sneak away after your second meeting. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, you saw me like packing my bag up.
I was just like,
That bell is
Alright.
ringing in.
For all those online, Mr. D'Amato is here for his second committee meeting.
That's true, that's true, yes.
What am I having for dinner tonight, Karen?
Egg roll in a bowl.
Egg roll in a bowl, yeah, she gave so she gave all the ingredients and how to my wife,
Oh,
yeah,
deconstructed
yeah.
We call it deconstructed, I feel.
I like an egg roll in a bowl, nice and it rhymes.
No more dinner talk.
Okay, so just curious, cause I know that you did some work with the code of conduct, participation and things like that. How often do we check attendance with athletes, you know, how often are we
Yeah.
checking their academics, and then
Yeah.
what are the standards, how do we correct as they are, you know,
Yeah, we do it every day.
okay,
Yeah, every day it is filtered, the attendance is filtered, I get a report, that report is directly then given to the coaches. For instance, we have a situation right now with an individual, you know, he has 3 detentions that he still hasn't made up, from last week, and he will be ineligible, you know, moving forward, so until those detentions are taken care of,
sure,
you can't be on the field, so, that's
daily,
happened.
okay,
That's happened, I don't wanna say often this fall,
sure,
but it was awakening to a lot of individuals. So it's been good, I got a lot of good feedback from parents. We've received a number of phone calls with uncertainty about why this is being implemented, this didn't happen last year, those types of things, which is
Sure.
fine. So there's gonna be a transition there with it, and that's okay. Kids are doing a great job, they're conforming, and they do understand the responsibility there as well.
yeah, and the clear expectations are helpful for them to
Yeah.
be able to know when they're hitting the mark
Absolutely.
and when they need to
Yep.
pay a little bit
Yeah.
more attention.
And then we also have the tardiness as well, so it's not just, if you're excused, you're excused, that's fine, we get that, but any kind of unexcused, you need to get it cleared up by the next day, otherwise, if it's not, then it turns into a detention, and then it turns into a suspension, and then you get the idea.
Yeah,
This is very linked to the strategic plan, attendance came out in the strategic plan, especially from the staff, in that in some cases, you know, if the students are there, then we'll be responsible for them, but making sure we get them there. I mean, that's a lot of effort, and I'm really proud of the staff, the assistant principals, the support staff in the offices, the counselors, the school social workers. It takes a lot of people, assistant principals and principals, home visits, phone calls, there's behind the scenes work with Power School. So it's definitely an initiative of ours district-wide in order to pull up our attendance rates. You know, generally speaking, if students aren't there, it's hard to move them up if they're, you know, in terms of achievement and growth, if
Sure.
they're not present. So it's a focus of ours in the strategic plan, and it's gonna be year to year. So this is,
I would say between our associate principals, our counselors, our AAs, they're rock solid. So they're all collaborating together with that attendance piece. And it comes full circle to me, and then we can disseminate the information, get it out there, and like I said,
quickly.
making sure
Yes.
that, we're holding kids accountable.
And then how does that work for their academics? So if someone is failing, do you look at that daily then as well?
You know, the daily grade, it's so fluid, right? I'm a
One
parent.
test.
I can attest to that, okay, my son, all of a sudden he goes from an A to a D, it's like, how did that happen overnight? Well, I never handed this in, and remember I was sick, whatever the case is, so. Yeah. Yeah, just wait, yeah, okay, yeah. So, yeah. So we do have our grading periods, right? So we look at our major grading periods and our quarterly and then take it from there. I will say this, a lot of our coaches have and will continue to do grade checks. So those grade checks happen every 3 weeks. And they're great because
Okay.
they're just a slip of paper, they have all their classes. The teacher does, I mean, the coach does nothing. He hands them to them and it's got an academic grade and then an attitude grade as well, and then they can make comments. So from there, as a coach, I would have the good pile, which you don't have to worry about, and then I have the ones, we need to talk to these guys,
The watch
you know?
pile.
Yeah. So you're hoping this pile's like this and this one's really low. But anyways, it makes it, you know, very convenient and it's easy to keep track of our students, even though everything's right there in front of you. But holding those kids and our student athletes to that standard, to take accountability, to spend time with their teachers, to talk about their grade, their attitude, their academic grade, have that conversation, move forward, give it to the coach, have them evaluate, and then move forward from there, I think is just a great life skill.
Do coaches use the Power School? Is that
Yeah,
what they're
every
doing
single
in
one,
Rachel?
yeah.
As I say, I noticed that when a child signs up for the team.
So
coaches
yeah,
get
it's
that
been really
in there.
good.
You can see attendance and
Yeah.
player part.
So what we ended up doing is, Heather Slats over at, the guidance department, she put together everything in Power School, and Power School talks to Schoology. So she was able to make those groups, and the sole purpose, and one of the drivers, the main driver was for a communication piece, right? Because we can't have cell phones. So the coach's role is concerned, well, how do we communicate through, you know, all our communication was kind of through a cell phone. Well, now that they have Schoology, they have that on their group, they have it on their computers, on their Chromebooks, and now they're able to communicate that way, which makes it super nice for us, as administrators, you know, knowing that they're using that platform effectively.
Absolutely.
Quick comment from a high school counselor perspective, like, talking about the accountability piece with the high schoolers, the buzz that I get the sense of in my office, the kids are feeling the changes and they're getting it, you know, they're changing and it's a good thing. And this is like, I think they get it and it's leading them toward that student athlete leader kind of respect that they need to earn, you know, so it's a great change.
I'm just
John is
curious
leading.
about, I'm just curious about attendance, like maybe from comparing this year's to last year. If there's like a switch, or if you compare the numbers at all.
Compiling the
is it
data
relevant
and
to
kind of
count it?
looking at,
So
Yeah.
we
Because
can
of-
do that pretty easily.
Yeah, like athletes' attendance from last year to this year,
Yeah.
just because of the switch, I'd be kind of
Right.
curious.
And I can't do it in real time right now, but I know
No.
somebody here who can.
Yeah, I mean, I would
I'll be
think
honest
the
with you.
school attendance improved just naturally, the athlete.
I would be
attendance
even more intrigued by this fall, like we're currently in, and next fall.
Yeah.
Because they've had a
Oh,
full
cause then they
year,
were conditioned.
you know what I mean, you'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, let's see how effective they are.
Yeah, exactly.
So Brianna, who works in the CNI,
Right.
I mean, she does a lot of these things in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we know what we're asking her to pull, that's information we could bring back to
It's-
fix.
it
Yeah, I mean,
just
that's
seems
some
good.
actual
That is
data,
part of
you
Yeah.
know.
Part of their data. That is part of our data gathering
Yeah.
points. For our big three, we look at academics,
Right.
grades and attendance, that will be something we're digging into. We didn't really necessarily have it for athletes, but I think that's something John and I can follow up on.
Yeah.
I'm just
Pretty
kinda
easily.
curious, like, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
because of the switch, but
I would say with the buzz, when I
Yeah.
talking about anecdotally, I've seen when that buzz comes, your attendance comes with it.
And that'll naturally bring up, I mean, you know, I don't know what percentage of kids are athletes, but like, you know, well, you probably do, but generally, but it would bring up the whole schools.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Well, when you expand to athletes and
Yeah.
activities.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Because activities
Yeah.
will have the same standard,
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
That's right.
which is important to.
Yeah, totally, right?
Yeah, there's a direct correlation between better attendance and higher levels of learning and achievement. I mean,
There's no
that's why
doubt.
it's on all the report cards. It can be one of those things, I mean, I was an assistant principal for a number of years back, I don't know, decade and a half ago. I mean, it can be one of those things that grinds on you a little bit, but there's a direct effect of that work. I mean, when you're in it and you're in the trenches, it's kind of tough to see, but there is a reality that getting them there, making sure that they're learning and answering core questions and doing those things. You know, what do you want the kids to know? How do they know it? What do you do when they don't get it? What do you do when they already know it? I mean, that's the core of teaching and learning, or learning and teaching.
Anyone else have anything for John before we?
No, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for doing 2 meetings. Appreciate it.
They go on a bowl.
They go on a bowl.
Thanks for
I gotta put that in there.
Yeah.
That's gonna be right next to, what was it, rodeo?
Yeah, exactly right. Alright, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very
You guys
much.
have a good night.
I think I like that better than reconstructed it.
It
I like that.
It does.
It does, it's nice. Can
My
you send
wife
that
is probably
recipe on
watching.
over?
I'll go at like 20,000.
Yeah, we did good at our house too. But I'm sure you perfected it, so could I have like the good
My wife's
recipe,
probably
right?
watching right now.
She's like, I want that
I want the
recipe.
recipe.
I like easy.
Next item on the agenda is the school counselors update. So are we starting with elementary?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for coming in.
I'm Kara Baker, I'm the school counselor at Riverside.
And I'm Kristen Lotta, I am the counselor at Shady Lane.
And we have 1.6 counselors at Ben Franklin and one at Valley, full-time at Valley View.
Okay.
Our mission is to provide comprehensive school counseling services with equal access to all students. Our program is designed to help all students develop and enhance their academic, social, emotional, and career skills, knowledge, and understanding in order to become responsible, productive, and successful members of the community. I have a mouthful.
So right now, how we're doing that is all students 5K through 5th grade receive 30 minutes of classroom instruction every week. 4K classrooms are seen on a rotation, so they also receive 30 minutes, but it ends up being about once per month. In addition to that, so that's like our tier 1 universal instruction. Students can also receive individual or small group counseling on an as needed basis. So variety of topics, we put a few things in there, but like anxiety, social skills, learning skills, executive functioning things, family changes. So those are all a variety of topics that we may cover with students in groups or individually. Right now, our universal curriculum is second step, so we are using that for K through 5th grade. We're working hard, like we said in our mission, to reinforce the social, emotional, academic, and career readiness of all of our students. Some of the specific things that we do are we assist with the transitions, both from 5th grade to middle school, but also between our lower elementary and our upper elementary. And then some just kind of extra groups, so at Riverside and Valley View, they have service groups, so the admirals or the ambassadors. Valley View also has a kindness squad, so just kind of some ways to get students involved and really get them feeling like they're an important part of our community, because they are.
Those are great programs.
They're really fun, they're really, yeah,
I mean, it's good for the kids to take ownership of their own, learning how to give back and
Yes.
in the way they're involved, so I remember that.
So, in addition to working with our students, we're also part of our problem-solving teams. We're working with parents, with other staff members on both behavioral and academic concerns. We serve a lot of times as the person to touch base with for both WellPoint and our clinical psychology associate therapists that are on site. And then just a lot of work with our families, providing additional supports, making sure that we're connecting them with outside resources when they're having trouble finding those on their own. Occasionally, we're offering them logic classes for parents who want to participate, and then we also share every year at 4K Social Skills Night. We're connecting with parents that way.
Can you tell us what that is?
4K Social Skills Night?
Yeah, I remember 4K reading night, is that the same thing or is that different?
Similar, nope, similar. So
Okay.
4K has, I think, a reading night, a math night, and a social skills night.
Okay.
So part of social skills night is, as counselors, we do the presentation part with the parents, and the classroom teachers have the students during that time. And so we share a little bit more about our guidance program with parents during that time, and we talk about the basic social skills that we're helping kids to develop while they're with us. Some new things, so recently we became facilitators for our annual 504 meeting, so we are now in charge of those. Something new that we started at Shady Lane is we started a parent book club, so we're meeting with parents like every 6 to 8 weeks, and we're choosing books about child development, parenting, topics that parents are finding of interest, and we're just collaborating to talk about them and talk about, struggles we face as parents, right? Because it's not easy to do that alone. As part of that process, the books that parents are choosing, we're adding to like a lending library, so that we will have books for parents to check out if they would like more information about certain things, because like right now, wait lists at the library are quite long for certain books, and it's just not always accessible for a parent to buy a book that they're interested in. I think our first book we did, some people were like 100 and something on the wait list, like it's just, sometimes it's tricky.
Sure.
And then new this year too is the collaboration with the middle school and the high school for Red Ribbon Week. So middle schoolers are coming to the lower elementaries and high schoolers are coming to the upper elementaries, and they're assisting our kids with kind of a fun project for Red Ribbon Week, which is exciting.
One big shout out on the 504s is this is relatively new here in this district. That's a huge lift. I mean, 504s often sometimes get misunderstood as special education, and it's not. But it's an important civil rights accommodation, quite honestly, that we're providing, and it's quite a bit of work. So kudos to our staff, our counselors who are doing that work, because facilitation of that, for example, an example would be if somebody has, I had a student once years ago had a traumatic brain injury. That's an example, or permanent, physical, any number of different things can be 504s. I just gave you a couple examples, but the amount of work that goes into that, background work, if somebody has cancer and there's some long-term changes and plans that need to be made. It's quite a bit of work. Just kudos to our counseling staff for taking that on and engaging with that work, because it's critical everyday work that isn't often understood, but takes a lot of energy and time.
And then as we look forward, we always wanna increase our collaboration with parents and families and providing as much education and opportunities for them as we can. Continued expansion of our career education experiences. We are looking at trying to understand the process of adopting updated standards. Our standards are currently outdated. And then potentially moving forward with a change to our universal school counseling curriculum.
Yeah, so that, we have the curriculum committee, I think we have a couple members, 2 out of 3 sit on curriculum as well, actually who are sitting here. So we did make a recent change within the last year to that whole cycle. And it does start with standards and looking at those updates, but we'll make sure that Mr. Halverson and Ms. Riebel are coordinating with the curriculum committee about those outdated standards, getting the updated piece, and then looking at whatever curriculums are gonna be looked at. I mean, I'm sure you have some idea, but I mean, there's a process and a protocol through the curriculum committee. 2 of the 3 members here, actually, sorry to exclude Travis. Yeah.
And our desk.
We're missing 1 member of the curriculum committee, so you actually have 2 of them here, where that would also flow through.
And when we met about that, we actually had a meeting about this today, trying to figure out what is the actual process of it. So as we started looking, right now, we need to really go through what are the standards that we're gonna utilize in order to build the curriculum or even find the curriculum, is really what we're hoping to do. And looking at what we've got right now in front of us, the state has adopted the ASCA standards back in 2018, which in and of itself is quite a ways away too, but it's not as far as our standards are that we've got in place right now. So ours is outdated to the point where we definitely need to do something about it. So looking at how the curriculum process works, we're looking at the second step, especially at the elementary level, is really the curriculum that's in place. Is it the best? We don't know. We've seen some things at different age levels that aren't exactly productive when you start getting a little bit older with that process. And those are still, again, based off of standards from back in a while ago. So I think that as we look at where we're moving, we find out what the standards are that we think we wanna adopt, which is more likely gonna be ASCA. And then as we go through the process, we start looking at what's out there right now. What's something that's current that's gonna help us for our kids, what are we looking for? I think when we discuss it today, we're in a pretty good spot at the high school, we're in a pretty good spot at the middle school. We really gotta look at where our focus is gonna be initially, is gonna be starting at the lower levels and working our way up as it needs to, if we need to.
Okay.
So I think really finding the standards we wanna pick, from that point, let's take a look and see what's out there. We're gonna have some research going on at the conference this year in December, I think, isn't it? Next month, November, so November, we've got the counselor conference in Wisconsin, so we'll be able to gather some resources there hopefully, and then share that with our elementary level, and really go from there and see where we're at. And at that point, we decide, is this something we wanna move forward with?
That's it. That was a lot of information.
Yeah, sorry.
Good, no, I mean,
That's
that's
okay.
great.
I was,
Hopefully you're a fast note taker.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking at increasing parent and family education, what ideas do you have, what would you like to see happen in that space?
So I think what I'd love to see is part of it is really could be very simple, like getting parent newsletters out attached to like our Sunday, like we do a Sunday post or our principals do a Sunday post. I
Yeah.
just know that those aren't always opened with the frequency that I would love to see them open. So just trying to find a way to connect with parents that they can access and they will access, right? Because who wants to read one more email?
Right.
Right, but that's an easy way to get something out to everybody. You know, and I think that I'm learning a lot from our parents during our book club meetings, which I think for me is so wonderful.
I think
Because we're,
that's a great idea.
It's really-
I really love that.
honestly, it's really fun. I really enjoyed it. We've only read one book so far and we've had just phenomenal discussion.
Yeah.
And for me, it's so wonderful because I'm learning what they need from me, right? Because we're meeting at 8:00 at night on like a Zoom, right? So everybody's like winding down for the night and we're having some really, I think, authentic conversation. Which I think is so wonderful, and like they've given me so many ideas that then I've gone back to Shaylee and I'm like, okay, here's what the parents are asking for, like how do we make some of this happen, right? So I think like those types of conversations are so helpful. But they're not always easy to like organically make that happen, right? But that's, I don't know, I don't know if you disagree, but like I want parents to just call me, tell me all the things, like how do we help you, right?
Right, right.
So I think like just getting our information out there as much as we can, creating as many opportunities as we can for them to like face to face with us. And then, you know, probably still putting out the newsletter and just keep our fingers crossed that it gets opened.
Well, and so much parents get busy and overwhelmed,
Yeah.
I know with the newsletter, so then one of the things is we're gonna get quick hits is, do you guys do like social media for each of the schools, cause I know they have like Facebook or Instagram, is
Yeah.
hey, maybe 1 month or 1 day of the month, you guys are showcasing a resource or a book
Yeah.
club or a recommendation, something so
Yeah.
parents can get snippets
Yeah.
of what's happening, or hey, we're gonna showcase one of you from the talented team. If your students go or your kids go to this school, call this person.
Yeah.
I know getting the information to me that quickly and linked,
Yeah.
I can always go back to it of, oh, I saw it in my feed, let me go back and look.
That's true.
It's just easier to find.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of it is, I know I love to bring up the website, is to just have quick links on the website. And to the extent that things are out there, then again, you can showcase your social media and include shortcut links. How I live, breathe, and eat is being able to just navigate that stuff, especially if it's after hours, then I know I can take action the next day.
We do still have, and I'm not sure if it's linked to our main website, but we did create an elementary counseling website with just like a bunch of resources, like your child's working through grief, like here are some great resources, your child, like, so we had created that, I think it's probably still linked to our website.
It is, yeah.
It is, yeah, so it is out
Then it's
there.
just a matter of like promoting it,
Right.
cause even if you
True.
go to our district
Yeah.
website, there's a lot of info.
There's a
on it.
There's a lot.
And Sarah heard me talk about this last week too, is that, you know, when you start looking at the links there within the webpage, and John brought this up tonight too. This is a slow process, because we're talking tens of thousands of links on this one page.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when we start doing the update, and again, this isn't an excuse, it's just where we're at.
I agree.
And we're starting to go through and piece some of them together, because honestly, a lot of these connections that we have, even at state or federal level, that we have to do, they're dead ends. And I think when we start going through, correcting them and trying to patch them up, we're finding more and more, you kind of go down a rabbit hole. And you can go for hours just trying to fix one link after another, so it is gonna be something that we
Agreed,
continue
but
to work
even
on.
if you like manage a PDF where you don't have to do it so much in the website, but then the PDF has the links,
Yeah,
then you just have to maintain a single
Yeah, yeah.
document during that.
Yeah,
So part of it's like experiment with what works. I think the biggest thing is you're doing great stuff, so we'd wanna be able to get the promotion out there so you can connect with the parents.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, so what curriculum are we looking at right now? Is there anything that you're kind of like, wow, if we could really get something like this, it would be great?
so I think we'd like to pilot a few things if we had like our
Ideal
option.
situation.
Right, because like, they put their best lessons on the website, right? They put, you know, and you don't really know a full curriculum until you have it in your hands and you're trying it with students.
Right,
Because just me looking at it is also a much different story than like presenting it to kids and seeing how they interact with it. I think one option for us would potentially be aligning with what the middle school does. They, so Character Strong does have an elementary program, Purposeful People. I think there's some power to us being aligned. I think creating some consistency and fluidity for the kids. I think another aspect to that program that we like is that each month basically has, a theme to it: respect, honesty, integrity, which then kind of creates this bigger universal piece that brings in like the whole school as opposed to just like our individual lessons. But we also know there's a lot out there, so we'd really love to pilot a few things, I think.
Yeah.
We were looking at one called 7 Mindsets. I mean, there's a few things I think that we'd like to try and really see what we're getting into and how it works for our community, right? Like that
And
matters.
I'm assuming when you go to your conference, you'll collect feedback from your peers in other districts to see what they're using and what they like and don't like, right?
That's one of the
Yeah,
things we
it's
talked
right
about
on
the
the
other day, is like, we gotta see if someone's actually running this in their, somewhere in their area.
And I
go
think-
visit.
Germantown, I heard, is, right?
They have Character Strong.
Yes, yes.
They have Second Step and moving
Yeah.
towards Character Strong.
So there are other
Okay.
districts in our neighboring communities that are using it. So yeah, I think we need to start reaching out, but we were just kind of at the beginning of
We gotta
this.
define what before you can divide it.
Yes,
So it
yeah.
sounds like you're at that
Yes.
step.
Great. Any other questions for elementary level?
Does our curriculum cover, like if we would purchase one curriculum, does that cover each grade level, like elementary, north?
We talked about that too, cause like from,
Or can you get separate
It
curriculums for
depends, like I
separate?
said, they do them differently, sometimes you have to buy a license that only is good for one building, sometimes it's
Yeah.
good for a whole, it just depends on your program.
Yeah, it really depends on the vendor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like when we went through with like ELA and it really depends.
and
With English, I mean, it's very similar to like the curriculums we did with English. Some of them are all over the place in terms of what they allow, what they give out, so.
but the other part of that is too, even financially, there might be a connection or some sort of savings if we did
Yeah.
align with one or the other too. That was one of the things we talked about, maybe we get a
Yeah.
bulk discount.
Okay.
That was what I was.
Yeah, cause curriculum is not cheap.
Not.
It is,
Well,
it is
you can get
an
it from
investment.
Yeah.
And it has the same principles and it starts with useful and then you can connect to it, then you're not like stopping and starting as you go
And
through.
then fire up another one with a kid.
Do they charge you to pilot it, do you know?
I think so.
There's probably some fee for the
I think
Yeah.
so.
We've been charging,
Materials,
we
no.
piloted Character Strong.
No.
But they gave us like a limited time,
Yeah, like
Okay.
there's so.
like a month.
Oh, that's really fast,
So
okay.
they, okay.
And then they.
Be fast.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
this is great
When
work,
it's
I mean, starting with the standards, but
Yeah.
also working with Ms. Riebel about what the cycle is and the curriculum committee. Meaning, where are we at with this cycle? I mean, is it gonna be a this year or next year purchase? I mean, we have to align it with
Right, because
other.
when is the, so we have currently Character Strong in the middle school. When, is this like a subscription licensure, when does that
Next year.
expire, is it
October.
It's an annual.
annual, okay,
For the middle school,
Yeah,
it's an
second step
annual.
is October.
Yes.
okay, okay.
Second Step, we are up
In October.
October.
Next October. So
Next October.
we will not be able to use it next year, really.
How long have you guys been using Second Step?
So we were using the first version of Second Step since 2014, 2015. And then this is our third year, right, with the newer, the updated version.
yes.
Okay. Yes.
And so then the powerful people would be kind of the elementary level of the Character Strong, okay.
Yes.
I think that's all the questions I have for
Yep.
elementary level, so if
Thank you for the
yes,
hard work.
thank you very much. And
Thanks for having us.
I think it'll be good to see what you come up with after the meeting next month. I mean, it's kind of exciting to see what new stuff and what's out there, so.
We're excited.
Okay, on to the middle school.
All right, I'm Jeannie Tremelling, I'm one of the middle school counselors, and I'm Carrie Yarbrough, I'm one of the other middle school counselors. Our third counselor, Jennifer Bernelia, is not available to attend tonight, so. Slide. Oh, going on to the counseling program mission, it's much shorter than the last one. But it is very simple, we just want to create good human beings, we want to create people who are contributing to society and good citizens, and so that's the bottom line for us. All right, so we talked about Character Strong quite a bit, we've had it since fall of 2021, and I think we're in a really good place. I think there were some adjustment issues at first. It's delivered once a week to the entire students in all grade levels. The lessons are based on getting kids a sense of belonging in school, building relationships, engagement in school, as well as they call it life readiness skills. So just coping skills, things that we need to manage throughout life. So I really like the lesson focus. It is a research-based curriculum, and so they have studied and said that these things are outcomes of their program at the middle school level. Students increase perceptions of school safety, students exhibiting safe behavior, student engagement rises, kids wanna be in school, so less truancy, and improve student self-management. And we're seeing those in the culture that we build at North, so we are very pleased with that program right now. We also use Zello as our college and career readiness program, that's used to explore different pathways and get ready for the future, getting ready for the high school.
Can we talk about Character Strong for a minute at the
You
middle
bet.
school?
Mhm.
From a behavior standpoint of students, we know that North had its, was high on the side, even higher than particularly the high school was last year. So how do you correlate the lessons that you're teaching in Character Strong and the time that's being allocated? I know they say like, here's what you should be achieving from the outcome, but I would say we're seeing increases happening in some of the safety and behavior issues within North, so help me understand how we're looking to like reduce those incidents within the North Middle School and leveraging Character Strong to accomplish that, because I'm assuming you are, correct? That's one of the gateways in conjunction with other administrative staff and other.
Right, and I think those are outcomes that the program says.
Yes.
We're still early on in our use of it. You know, this is year 4. This is year 4. I think we would love to see us be able to take it to the next step, meaning their tier 2 program where we can focus more on students who have behavior concerns, doing more like a small group, like tier 2, kind of like we do with our reading and math interventions, where we go to the next level if the students aren't meeting aren't reaching the academic, they're not proficient, so we look at moving out from just the general classroom level to more of a small group intervention. We would hope to be able to do something like that with behavior as well.
How do you determine if they're tier 2, tier 3? Like what is your
Metrics
Yeah,
or,
what do you
we
use?
actually have a team that is looking at that this year.
Okay,
Yeah,
cause I
so,
saw that you guys were moving to that.
yeah,
As part of the multi-tier system of support, so you start looking at how
Right.
we implement those interventions that's tied into the big 3. Because then it becomes more of a, what's the student services team gonna get involved with and how can we help these kids more direct. So like you're saying, that we kinda got this big focus right now, where we're presenting to everybody, just like you would in a regular classroom. But all of a sudden, we start looking at some of the data points through the dashboards and say, this kid needs help in this kid needs help in that. So the behavioral piece, like when we were talking about switching out of the majors and minors because it's just so vague, we're gonna pinpoint what those needs are specifically. So if I get a kid that's disruptive in every class, I need to know that it's disruptive in every class, not a minor. If I got a kid with a cell phone or a technology problem where they constantly are doing that, it helps us be able to pinpoint it, so when we take it to a student services team, they can break down, okay, what are we gonna provide as an intervention? If I got 6 or 7 kids that are having that same issue, I don't have to necessarily pinpoint one at a time, I could have a little bit bigger group, that'd be that second level. Eventually, that third tier would be, we're gonna start finitely pinpointing this 1 or 2 kids to meet with and tell them, here's what you need to do differently. So from a behavioral aspect, it's really about that progression of discipline and the consequences there, we're ramping them up as we're getting into those different tiers. But at the same time, we're also teaching the kids, hey, this isn't right, you gotta do this here, but you need to do differently.
So when you do tier 2 though, is it like during that same time, during STAR time or whatever?
that's a great question, we haven't identified.
Okay, so
So
are you
literally
kind of shooting for
just
that,
started
like
moving,
pulling
yes.
them, okay.
So it's a team of administration, Brian Kern, our behavior coordinator, and then student services staff. So counselor, psych, social worker, that team is reading to like determine what this process is gonna look like.
In programs that
How
I've
we
set up
identify.
with MLSS, yes, that would be one, but there's always gonna be other, there would have to be outside of STAR as well,
True.
because
Yeah,
the
the
times that
people.
behaviors occur might,
Uh-huh.
like we were seeing spikes when I was at Menominee with an eye, which I was there for 10 years. It's out west, that's where I was a principal, that the spike was during lunch hours. So we didn't have a start time, but we had an intervention time, we called it ELT, the same sort of thing. So extended learning time, it didn't match up, so then we created a lunch and learn over lunch that essentially was a way to work with people's schedules, teachers and others, to do opposite side behavior interventions over lunch. So it really depends on what the data says, but also what the team is developing. Because usually, there's some times of the day time matters when it comes to, especially the incidents, in the middle school in particular, it starts very early. I don't know what the data says about that, and I don't. I really don't, but I'd be interested to look at it.
I just, back to kind of what Shelley was alluding to, so we're looking at like metrics and making sure that we're providing curriculum to the students that is effective. What measurements do you have right now? Like, how do you know, like, okay, Character Strong is where we wanna stay, for example, or would we wanna look at a different curriculum and, if not, why, and if so, why?
I gotta be honest with you, when we looked at curriculums like 4 years ago, there just wasn't a whole lot out there. And I
Okay.
don't know if that has changed.
Sure.
But we had, I think we already knew that Second Step wasn't super, you guys weren't super thrilled with it at the elementary level. And I think we did reach out to some other school districts to find
Okay.
out what they were doing.
And this seemed to be the head of the pack.
Well, Character Strong wasn't as widely used, I think, as it is now. I think it's gotten bigger and bigger in the last few years. But there were a few districts, there was a school district, or a school, I don't know if it was the district, in Racine, Oconomowoc, so we reached out to a few different, and now I think there are more districts using it.
Sure.
But that's a great question for us to figure out, is this something that we wanna continue to utilize?
I think I look at it through an ROI lens of, I know that our English language arts is really low in the middle school, and then I know we've got behavior issues, and so you think about the limited time we have in the day. Where do we spend our time and resources? If we can intermediate on the behavior a different way, and we can spend time focused on ELA and math scores, I guess I just look to it from a ROI standpoint to be able to say, is it having the connected and the impact that you would hope? Versus, is there other ways to look at it? And so not to say that as a holistic program that it's beneficial. I think in general, most kids are good kids and these are easy concepts. Maybe partially boring for the ones that are already good kids. And then is there a subset of groups of kids that really do need the support and the learning? And is that not something that you teach at Mass? I don't know. I don't wanna touch on that because it's more of a curriculum problem.
Sure.
I care, but if we're gonna invest the time and the energy and the money and
And
the
do
curriculum.
more of something, I was like, sure, we wanna do more of that.
Are we getting out of it?
Correct, are we getting out of it what we wanna get out of it?
Right.
So when you, the counselors do the teaching at elementary level,
Yes.
but the teachers do it at the middle school level,
It is
right?
delivered
And
during
there's
start time.
32 lessons at Character Strong.
We have 25 lessons.
Oh,
that we're
25?
doing for
Okay.
Character Strong this year.
Gotcha. Was it reduced from last year?
It was reduced, we wanted time to add a couple other lessons, and actually Character Strong does have a couple other lessons that they're not counting in that 25, regarding some anti-bullying behavior, and then we have a college and career week that we do as well.
Gotcha.
We wanted to be able to supplement,
Right.
use up the whole year with Character Strong.
Yeah.
So, and they actually have 3 different options within their program, so we went with the 25 lessons.
Gotcha.
It's the same price regardless.
No
No discount.
No discount.
Right.
Let's focus on the one, the bullying, because we've got issues with that, so.
Yeah.
So right now during start time, how often do they meet with a counselor?
During start time, our
Or is the
curriculum
teacher?
Character Strong is delivered by a
Right,
teacher,
okay.
so it's not delivered by counselors.
Right.
We just don't have the staff for that. And then there are other days during the week, so that's just one day a week on Wednesdays, other days of the week they're doing reading or math
So
interventions.
it's generally one day a week,
Yeah.
but
So when
not necessarily.
when do they meet as a class with the counselor?
We do go in several times throughout the year, but it's not like on a regular basis. At the
Okay.
beginning of the year, I do an intro to meet all the 6th grade.
Right.
We do registration and things like that, so various times throughout the year, but not on a regular basis as the elementary does.
Right. But you wanna get into the groups, into the tiered,
Yeah, the tier 2 groups would be smaller groups specific on a focus. Like
right,
right now, some of the groups that we do might be like executive functioning, getting yourself organized for middle school is a big deal. Being able to hand in your assignments on time and things like that. So we have groups in executive function and anxiety. We could do some behavior groups, those are the tier 2 groups that we wanna do more of.
my thing is if you're in a class with 25 other kids and you wanna talk about a problem, you're not just gonna raise your hand and be like, I have this, my parents are going through a divorce and blah, 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 my parents beat me, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna do that, so I wanna know when
Oh, like individual counseling?
either individual or very small group of other maybe same troubled kids.
I'll give you a perfect example of that, Travis. So this is one of the things that we've started implementing too, vaping.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about the addiction that the vape devices have.
Yeah.
And we really took that in a small group of, we went through addiction.
Yeah.
And it was more from the standpoint of the universal connection with addiction, but it really was between vaping and also from kids that have addicts as family members.
Yep.
So it spun in from that one group of maybe 8 kids and then like some subsets of smaller groups too, where we were talking about that.
Mhm.
But that was one of the things that we took to the next level because we had to have the additional time structure outside of what we did during our ELTs or resource time.
Yeah.
So that was one of those where we dug a little deeper, and then as you start finding out even more, I mean, you got a kid that's got some severe issues at home because of the addiction stuff that are going on in their family, then you take that to the next level.
Yep.
Now you're in the 201 for the kids.
Right, and that's where I was getting to, is,
Yeah.
you know, if you can, I mean, there's always an underlying problem of why you're behaving like this, whether you have too much sugar or you're not getting enough sleep or whatever it is, cause you have to be at school at 6:45 in the morning.
But that comes back to.
Solve something.
That is.
Hopefully.
But I will say this, Mr. Munoz and I toured North last week,
Yeah,
right?
maybe 2 weeks ago, yeah.
Week and a half, last week, but
I got some good pictures of you in crawl spaces.
oh my goodness, built on the stones, like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's built on bedrock in there, but given that you went
Crawling
to.
all over like low crawling.
Oh, well, you went to school there, I didn't, so I thought it was more important that you
So-
see everything.
Wow.
Terry did say that the behavior from last year to this year has improved,
Yeah.
at least but she's saying that because of more of a presence from the resource officer and Mr.
Two
Kurt and
APs.
everything.
Well, we added
Two
an
more
assistant-
APs in the
yeah.
hallways,
Okay,
like, kids are like, oh, Mr. Kurt's right there, I'm not gonna bring him.
Yeah, I mean, we've made a
But this normal
conscious,
works.
we made a conscious change,
Yeah.
Right.
a permanent change by adding an assistant principal. In order to, what we had identified last year was a spike, a legitimate spike, and it didn't tail off, actually. We hoped that it would, I think mid-year, when I was speaking obviously with administration there, but it didn't. So it kind of stayed steady right up through the year, so, but it's been pretty good, really good so far.
I can't follow it.
So we're excited about the start, and I think some of the structural changes we made have been, but we also did that in the elementary schools as well. I mean, we added an assistant principal in the elementary schools as well. For the same reasoning, to get more of that in-building, on-the-ground presence.
And I think having that extra assistant principal, I think they've been able to be proactive too.
Yeah.
They're not always reacting to
Yeah.
things, we've identifying some of the students coming up from the elementary level that might need some extra
support.
TLC, or even some of our existing students, since both of our APs are new this year. We can kind of fill you in on who in 7th and 8th grade needs that extra TLC, so they've been able to be a little more proactive too, which I think, and trying to develop those relationships with the kids so that, if something does go haywire, that, they're,
Have that relationship.
yeah, they have that relationship.
Yeah, which is important, and that sense of belonging too,
Right.
that you mentioned, yeah. So looking at Zello for College and Career Readiness Program, and David, you might remember we talked about this last year, we used Naviance at the high school, and we were considering using Naviance at the middle going into the high school. Did we talk about that?
We might have talked about it, but it didn't,
Deja vu.
I didn't talk to anybody
Oh,
else about
We
it.
just had Naviance,
Oh, you
Yeah.
did, okay.
how many years ago?
Mm,
I don't remember.
Longer than apparently I need to.
I feel like there's a lot of swirl in here.
Okay.
No, I think we had a
It's not good.
conversation about it, but I didn't action anything, I didn't talk to.
Clearly, yeah, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing was.
I didn't talk to
right.
anybody or any of the counselors or anything, no.
Okay, so yeah, what didn't you like about Naviance then and why are we using Zello and what do you like about Zello?
I feel like Zello is a little bit more student friendly.
Okay.
For our level anyway.
Yes, for the middle
Sure.
school level versus the high school. I think there are some lessons and things that we do in Zello, and just the way they can explore and say, if I have a really big interest in science or math or whatever it is, what kind of careers can that lead me to? So it's just set up really well for them. And I know when we had Naviance, we had to pay quite a bit for it at the middle school level, and it just wasn't the right fit for us.
And I think,
Good to know.
And then Zello was free by the state of Wisconsin at the time, so we're like, let's use that, and we love it.
I can, when we
Oh,
transitioned.
it's a double win.
There was one full system that we utilized statewide, and I can't remember the name of it, but as soon as the state's like, no, that's not gonna be funded anymore, we're gonna switch to Zello. That was when a lot of different districts like, well, we like this for pay product, so we're gonna end up by paying for it, but a lot of us just said, we're going with Zello. And I think that was where the Naviance might have come in, because they're like, this was a
Especially
pay
going to high
site.
school and
So-
picking lanes.
What Mr. Halverson is referencing, statewide, every school district in the state was looking at, college and career readiness, and they were setting up these different platforms. And sometimes the state does great things, and sometimes they do questionable things. So, we have to kind of pick and choose, and I remember our conversation, but some of it comes down to price, but if the price is low and you're happy with it, college and career readiness programming is something that at the high school, I know that Mr. Bauer is leveraging those pieces as well. And it aligns just based on where he's going with readiness now and a couple of the pieces that he's working on moving forward. With local report cards. Now that's in the background and some personal goals that we'll work out with the building itself. But in terms of individual, like not state report cards, we'll get, those are out and everything, but actually building something local that's tangible about, look at our attendance now and look at it here, and look at the behavioral differences from last year to this year, and then measure that quarterly. There's things like that some of the even more expensive programs really can't help you with.
So
Right.
I remember when they first switched, when it went from a full free program to either $100 or $150 per student for the transition for what that pay site used to be. It used to be free and all of a sudden they said, here it is.
That's
Yeah,
a lot.
Well, the
That's,
students have tried Naviance and you,
$150.
if it's not a good fit, then it's not a good fit, well, we're having this conversation. It's helpful.
We can recognize that, it's not seamless going from north to the high school when we use Zello and then the high school uses Naviance. And I don't think you guys felt like Zello would be a fit
Yeah, I
for you,
can speak to it if it,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm getting nervous talking about
I-
it. I don't know how
Sweaty
expensive, I don't know how expensive it is, but we tried Zello
Okay.
like 7-8 years ago, because it was cheaper. And we found it to be cheaper. We thought it wasn't nowhere near as robust, and some of the promises that Zello made when we piloted and they pitched it to us was the the whole career connection to your community. I'm trying to remember the buzzword.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, the
Career-based
cables,
learning
cables,
experiences.
everyone was talking about cables, career-based learning experience.
That's right.
And the connections just didn't happen. They didn't deliver, at least in our community and in a lot of communities in southeastern Wisconsin, it fizzled for the high school level. But it had some very similar programming and but Naviance was better in we took 2 years to try it.
Safe to assume that what a middle schooler is looking at from our career is very different than what a high
Correct.
school is, because they're
Yeah.
trying to figure out where, if I'm going post-education, is it technical, is it 4-year, like all of that? Where right now, you're basically
What do you
looking
like
at
to do?
interests, and it's a lot less technical, where it seems like having a different tool set does make sense, even though there's the path, but I think there's a story to tell the learner of what their journey is and why it's different, so.
Don't worry, we're not changing anything.
No,
Just asking a question.
We still,
Sorry to make you nervous.
No, it's okay, it's okay,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a good discussion
fine.
anyway, but we still post Zello, students can, I don't think
They
any
still have access to it,
students
yeah.
don't go in it, but they certainly can, and we've accessed it as counselors to look back at their ACP plan for middle school and see if it aligns. It's interesting for kids to review that. 3-4 years ago.
There was a time, I'll even go back, this'll really date me. There was a time when the DPI said everything's gonna be in these thing called binders. And it wasn't a physical binder, it was these digital binders. And I remember going to my staff, you know, I have 180 teachers, and I'm like, binders are what we're doing, and I went with these binders, and it was a digital binder system, who remembers this? Right, right?
Actual binders.
Physical binders.
That's what we did, senior portfolio.
So we had the digital, this was a DPI initiative.
Get it for 2 days, oh my gosh.
And it was right about the time of Act 10, right? That's now really date me now, and I go to the staff and I say, this is the new thing for teachers and everything, and then next year it was gone. I remember I had a teacher come to me and I said, new thing, huh? And I'm like, never again. So,
We're not piloting it.
you gotta kind of watch some of those things a little bit and see what works best for the students in your community.
Yeah.
Like I said, sometimes state does some great things, and sometimes they create digital binders.
How do you use Zello? Like, what's the frequency or like, how is it used? I don't really know much about it.
We really combined everything into our career and college week that we have in spring, and so that's when they use it most. There are, some very high achieving students who access it quite often, because they
So
can
it's
access
just
it
available
anytime,
to
it
them.
is available to them. But yeah, during that week, we really want them to pick something, explore it, and see, okay, if this is what I wanna do, how do I get there? And so, that's what,
There's some elective classes that use it, so like,
mhm.
I know in our business department, Mr.
Yep.
Nitz and, Mr. Fiat, our new business teacher, they use it in a few of their classes. I think they use it with all the sixth graders in Technology Connections. So they get some exposure to it elsewhere besides that, career and college readiness week that we have in the spring. But I think that's something we're looking to, hopefully maybe we can do a little bit more of, but
So much time in a day,
Yeah,
and so many options.
Yeah.
in star time, we can only put so many things in star time and, yeah, so.
Okay, good. Okay, sorry, I totally interrupted you. Are we on the counseling program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Middle
Where are we?
Okay, continuum of support.
Yes.
Okay, so this is like
Oh, still there.
This is like our tier 2, our individual and small group counseling, when students are coming to us about their situations that are individual to their family or themselves or whatever. That's a lot of individual counseling, and then we do the small groups as well. So crisis counseling, the mental health needs at the middle school are quite high, obviously, and so that does take up a good deal of our time. We spend a lot of time, like if students are coming out of inpatient services for mental health, transitioning them back to school, meeting with parents, meeting with the mental health providers, collaborating with all of those. It takes a great deal of our time. We are very lucky that we do have a therapist in our building from Clinical Psychology Associates, so they'll have their once a week visit, but we kind of handle the daily things of how does a student manage their anxiety on a daily basis and manage their depression, so that is a big part of our job. And then as well as the 504 piece, manage it with it's not in there in the middle.
The cream fella.
Yeah.
You can always go to the chill out room and stare at the cat on the TV.
Oh, and the counselor.
We have puppies, we can visit
That
puppies.
was like, why do you know about
That was part of our tour.
Yeah, usually it's puppies, we're partial to the puppies.
When we were in there, it must have been the cat on the screen name.
Oh.
So Travis, he's going, well, they have dogs, right? And I'm like, I think they probably have a lot
You
of.
can stop in anytime.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, fantastic.
I would just watch cat videos.
We had a full tour.
It sounds like it, you're underneath. Okay.
We were everywhere.
Back
We
on
were
track,
everywhere.
back on track.
We were even in the pool, but not actually jumping in.
We got around.
Cannonball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, strategic
Students'
data.
data to inform our decisions. We work on teams with our reading and math interventionists meet with them quarterly to make sure students are appropriately placed. We have students of concern problem solving meetings. Those are really concerning our at-risk students. So we look at attendance, we look at behavior, and we look at grades, and create plans to support those students. We also have the attendance data meetings, work with our school social worker about how we can support those families whose children are having trouble getting to school. So those are a big part of our weeks as well. To create that positive culture at North Middle School, we really focus a lot on transition since we are the middle child. So spending time getting them from 5th to 6th is pretty important. It's a big jump for parents, it's a big jump for students, and so we do a lot of things. We go over to the elementaries to talk about registration, what kind of our classes look like. Then we have the students come over and do a tour of North in the spring. And then we meet with each of the teachers also, because they know those students very well. And we wanna know how we can make that a smooth transition. So those three pieces are pretty important. Then on the other end, we do that with the high school, meeting with the high school counselors, making sure that they have a tour of the high school. And we've known these students for 3 years. We share all our information with the high school to make that a smooth transition. So that's a big task, but it's really important. We also talked about just the regular house meetings that we do with teachers, and then our district AOTA committee is kind of excited about the things that we're doing. We're having our 8th grade web leaders go to the elementary schools, and they're planting some red tulips with them and being some mentors at lunch and recess with them. So it's kind of a new thing for this year that we're excited about. All right, looking forward, we do want to increase our academic career plan and connecting with the high school a little bit more on some of our activities. Continue to grow our tier 2 small groups, adding in behavior, executive functioning, those kinds of things. And of course, aligning our school counseling standards with state and national standards. What would be looking forward to.
Very nice, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry
thank
for
you
the long
so
discussion.
so much information though, it's really good to.
This is why we have these, cause it's like a
It's
one-on-one
true.
for a lot of us, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
happy to.
yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, that
Okay.
means it's my turn.
Yes.
I will be the shortest of the.
Well, now that's what you think.
Yeah,
Sarah's
you
gonna
guys
ask a
run.
question.
It's getting after each other.
So, this is our team, and we, as you might know, we split by alphabet, so we get the honor of graduating with our senior class every year. So we've graduated 100 times, because we're old. We've got a lot of experience in our department. So our high school counseling program goal is to empower all students to acquire academic, career, personal, social foundations necessary to positively contribute to a changing society. So kind of a classic school counselor, goal set. And our essential questions that drive us: who am I? Where am I going? How am I going to get there? And so those three things we're thinking of constantly, and our curriculum unit, I mean, I have a hyperlink there, we don't need to go through it, that's how we address those questions directly every day in our work. So our curriculum units are mapped out. Basically, we meet with every single grade level 2 to 3 times a year in a large group setting. These are, I don't know if you call them lesson plans, but they certainly are. We meet during we don't have STAR, we have Phoenix time. And so we've already met with every grade level, so kind of proud of the fact that we really pushed it this year. We've met with all 1,266 students already this year, so pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, this is the quickest we've ever done that, and we wanted to really push it because, I mean, that's how your students get to know who you are, and
Right,
it opens up
exposure.
that access to, I mean, individual counseling is our bread and butter at the high school level, so that's, we are getting tons of referrals and, requests, which is great, that's what we want, 'cause that drives our work too. And Naviance is our platform for a lot of that curricular instruction. Do a lot of self-assessments in there, we force kids to use it, it's open to all students to use throughout the 4 years, but every one of those, let's say 8 to 12 curricular contexts throughout the 4 years, we're having them do an activity in Naviance, and they're slowly building that academic and career plan. And they could produce it into a binder, but it's a digital portfolio.
Senior portfolio.
We call
Thank
it you can call it a senior portfolio, and we reference that when we do our junior meetings. We do parent nights as well, we have junior parent night coming up in about 2 weeks, so.
Those DPI binders, they were really a negative thing on me.
Well, I do have to say, yeah, I did click on the unit chart and it's very detailed. There's a lot of work that's been put into that, and I think.
It's missing a lot of the new stuff, we gotta update it,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, so.
But I just think it's so great for the kiddos to see, right, where am I, where do I wanna go and how do I get there, and it was just laid out in a very common sense format, and then having those activities tied to the Naviance and seeing, again, they can kind of get that picture of where they are.
Yeah.
And where they wanna go.
No, thank you. We like showing this to the school board because it kind of gives a snapshot every year of our last graduating class. College and career readiness is paramount for our department. Our job is to guide all students toward an appropriate pathway individualized for them. So we're well aware of, our higher percentages, a majority of our fall students attend college. But, we serve our students, so we're well aware of that, but many engage in other rich opportunities, such as apprenticeships or joining labor unions, military, getting on the job training in technical fields, or doing trade routes. So many of those students don't need a 4-year degree to be very successful in our country in America, so it's awesome. And we celebrate those students as well. They're filling a rising need in the working world here. So we talk about, we give a lot of love to all the different areas and we talk about each one in turn. We do spend time helping a lot of students with the college application process, of course. But we try to spend an equal amount of time supporting students if they're pursuing other avenues, so. And a lot of kids that come back and talk to us say, hey, I didn't go to college, but now my employer's paying me to go get training in college at a technical school or
Well, they don't
whatever,
have to
you know.
pay for it, a lot
So
of
that's-
pockets, that's
so we-
brilliant.
yeah, we tell those stories, we ask those kids to come back and talk to the other, talk to the
Do you
current
have
seniors.
these statistics going back several years? Cause it would be interesting to compare it over the last 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, we do.
That'd be
I'll bring
awesome
that
to
next
see a
time.
picture. That'd be perfect.
No, cause we love that little picture of the jumping senior, and so, yeah, we.
Well,
we
for
brought
sure, I mean,
those.
part of the reason is I see gap year, which is 5%,
Yeah,
which
that's
tells me,
going up.
right, I would imagine it would be going up as people are still a little undecided and a 4-year university tuition is expensive and you don't wanna start something if you're not sure that's the avenue you wanna go.
Right.
I also know we've spent as a district a significant amount of money into our trades environment on our lower level. So to be able to see that number, is there a correlation since we've, invested in that to see more students engage in those, so it'd be awesome to kind of see the history of what that looks like.
I can tell you that the gap has closed a bit, and I don't know if that's a good thing or bad. 4-year college has gone down slightly, and yeah, those trades tech.
Well, and that's not surprising, cause every university out there is trying to grab every student they can get, so.
Yes, and now with I don't know if you guys know about direct admit in Wisconsin, so that's huge, like
Yep.
a majority, I don't wanna be misquoted, but a high number of our students are already accepted to college in September, so it's kinda crazy. Because they use a GPA threshold and it's, if you're the top 50% of your class, you're above a 3.0 generally at our high school, so you're gonna get into a nice school, state school, so. So that's probably gonna be interesting to watch that number, cause that'll probably grow back again, And we talk a lot about gap year because it was the old school of thought was that gap year was a bad thing and your counselors and your parents and your teachers should talk you out of that, but that the research is showing that's not such a bad thing anymore. Taking time and making a plan. So our biggest thing is that our goal, every senior class goal is you have to graduate with a plan. You have to have a plan. So if your plan is gap year, it's what's the next step after that gap year? It's not gap year and I'm, living in my parents' basement, and no offense, and working maybe the part-time job's good enough for you, but what about the full-time job? What about the next thing? What about the training? What about, so that's the idea. Which, and updates and looking forward. Kind of talked about some of these things with the other levels, but we have some mental health struggles we're addressing and we can talk about the different tiers where, individual counseling is huge in the high school. We have done anxiety groups before on a tier 2 level. We've done some executive functioning work with students that we have been identified. But some of the new ways looking forward that we've tried to proactively address some of these things we're seeing. We're really proud of our Peers for Peers group. We have about 20 upperclassmen, students who have been trained. They're not counselors, they're not therapists, but they've been trained in some sensitivity and some mental health support for mentoring, essentially. And kind of like students can sign up to see their counselor or their psych or their social worker at the school, they can sign up to see a peer. And we found that students are very, it's growing, so this is really year 2 of our huge launch of this. But it's through Elevate and Waukesha and they've been great with training the kids, but anyway, getting to the point I was gonna make, we find that some students are very willing to open up to a peer, and then those mentors are, you know, they're trained to come and get us when they need us, you know, if it's something very immediate or if it's a safety issue, we're involved right away. But it's great, so then the students have somebody they can actually, you know, associate with on the same level with their age, and maybe they can relate on a different level. It's been huge. So that's been proactive. We also have a partnership with CPA, Clinical Psychology Associates. They're there every day. I can't tell you when because they're there all the time, and we don't get to know who they're meeting with unless the kids tell us. And it's a great partnership, and it's nice having that kind of automatic release of information with them. So we're talking with the therapists almost daily about how things are going for some of our highest need students that are probably in terms of mental health, probably our tier 3. And then classroom visits, we've increased this quite a bit the last year or two. We're going into all the 10th grade 21st century wellness classes and presenting on safety and mental health and finding balance in life. We visit the Educator Academy classes talking about our trade, our you know, school counseling and education. And AVID is kind of a mission this year where we have quarterly visits in there. They are gently forced to use Naviance even more as we, you know, help them advance via individual or community determination. And then Phoenix Time, we're very active during Phoenix Time, meeting with students and pulling them down for support, academic, social, emotional, and you know, post-secondary support. So those are some of those things, and then we just threw them up on the wall. Here's some other tools that we use. I could talk about each one of these, but
Yeah, so what is the RISE study hall? What does that look like?
So you know about RISE from a few years ago. So RISE, I think it became an FTE issue. Maybe we maintained the study hall aspect of RISE. So they're getting study skills support, but they're also getting some emotional social support from that teacher who's kind of been handpicked for that because she's got skill with it. So they get a little bit of both, you know, and so there's some time where they talk with the teacher each day, and maybe they have a topic or they ask a student if they need any help with anything personally, and then they gotta get to work.
Okay.
And maybe it's a combination of both. And we counselors will visit the RISE study hall too. We used to do lesson plans when it was full RISE. We used to visit and, you know, do some work with them on teen issues, but.
And what is the reflection room?
So that is
You opened up.
that's kind of like a
Oh,
cool,
I
this is what I wanted. I was like, we'll throw these up there and
Yeah.
questions, let's talk about them, but just, this is not all encompassing, but it's not all inclusive, but some of the many tools we use. Yeah, the reflection room is something that we, we're in year 2.
Now, is there somebody in there like,
Yes,
okay,
it's staffed by one of our administrative assistants or one of our educational assistants, Monique, and she's awesome, and the kids know who she is, but it's kind of, we have a calming corner in our student services office, so a student can ask their teacher to take a 5-10 minute break, and maybe they don't want to talk with somebody, maybe they just want time to reset, because they're dealing with anxiety or they're dealing with some major issue, and they can't do school for a minute. But the reflection room is similar, but it doesn't have to just be for mental health, it could be for other things like maybe they need a behavioral reset, sometimes administrators use it as well. But it's just a different location, especially if our staff is, you know, unavailable, they can use that and cool down, and Monique has she has a system in place where it's, you know, take 5-10 minutes and then they write a reflection and they choose a skill or a tool they're gonna try, reset, go back to class. So our goal, I mean, we're not therapists, obviously, we have CPA for that, but we're solution focused, so it's like we have to get students through whatever issue they're having and then proceed with school, the learning must continue.
Yeah.
So,
And something like that, you hope that they can sit at their desk maybe next time and write out that reflection piece
right,
on their own and get back.
you hit
to
it,
learning,
that's
so-
a lot of what we wanna do
Yeah.
when they're in our offices too, we're doing some skill building and how can we avoid some kind of crisis for the next time, or how can we manage, how can we mitigate if bad things happen or they're not able to focus on their math tests or whatnot, you know. So, and one of the biggest things for us at the high school level is we want students to be able to connect with us. So we've put this all over the place, I know it's a lot of information, but there's many ways a student can get a hold of us. If they're having a it's not like if they're having a bad day, we're not available, you know, they can't get help, they come down, we see them right away at times, but on those occasions, there's a way to reach out to us, and if they're proactive, we're trying to train them and it's getting better and better. We're really proud of that upper right quadrant, we pay for a program out of my budget, the school counseling budget, it's called Calendly. Students pick their own times, we encourage them to pick during their Phoenix time, so they're not missing instruction. Or if they have to during study hall or an elective, and they're getting good, they we have kids mapping out a meeting with us 3 weeks in advance during their Phoenix time, great. So we're available, and I think the next slide is the same thing, really. Kids can call us on the phone if they want,
I like it.
yeah, so I made a little emojis for each of us to be cool and hip, right? But, you know, the QR codes, they can't have phones in class, but in between classes, they can scan that, or if they come down to student services, they can scan that. And then we say, you know, pick your own time, and don't do it during, I'm a former English teacher, don't do it during English, but or math or science or social studies, but yeah, pick your time and we'll meet. And they can leave us a little note, giving us an idea what it's about, so if it's an emergency, they're not to use this, they're supposed to tell someone right away and see it right away. So that is a little bit about high school program.
What about curriculum element? Do you help guide students at all with, so I wanna go into an academy, or I wanna be choosing classes that I can dual enroll and get as many?
Yes.
Do you help them with all that as well?
Totally, so
I
that's
didn't see
something,
curriculum mentioned up there, so.
that's something I didn't talk about with registration is a huge chunk of our curriculum, and that's not counted as our curricular context. But we are actually advancing that because we need to get those numbers earlier, so December we're starting to talk about, usually we wait till about February. But yeah, we're doing traditional guidance, like guidance counselors on that all the time.
Okay.
So we ask students to start mapping out for the ones, you know, we don't force that, but the 4-year plan is a great idea. We have you know, guides for that, and our course guide we're very involved with, we're in all the course guide meetings, so we try to get those ideas early so we can project a kid's trajectory for an academy or for a career interest, and here's the courses that would align with your pathway, so.
I know this year I got reached out to by a family that had a student enrolled in 2 AP classes that unfortunately both teachers left at high school. And so then part of it is if you're approaching your junior, senior year, which in this case there were, really hard to like make that up. So we've had a lot of conversations, so curriculum detail preview. If you'll say what can we do that offers that online so that you're available to still meet those needs, get those credits, cause I know that's offsetting a cost that somebody would incur at university. You pay like what, $150 for an AP exam, so in this instance, they got bit by 2 AP classes leaving, so it's just one of those things as you're being planful and intentional, you can't plan a teacher leaving and then having to move a course, so being able to have alternate solutions helps them achieve their plan. We know a young lady that graduated 2 years ago, went to Baylor. She took 66 credits with her, and so when she started Baylor, she had junior process, and she will be graduating this December after 2.5 years. So it is a true cost savings with the cost of education as well, that it's a no wonder it's a hot topic with people coming to us with what can you do to expand your catalog, what can you do to make summer school available, et cetera, so that high school students that are on that career path can get those needs and have a significant cost savings, so.
Yeah, I'll be pushing on the online piece.
Yeah.
We don't have and we should. I mean, we don't have a full,
Right.
we bumped into this in finance because of the open enrollments out for pure online schools. I mean, we don't have a way to say to do the same thing, I mean, not in the way that they're doing it. So if they're going to Waukesha, Northern Ozaki, or all these other things, I mean, I bumped into it a few different times, so it's something that we're leveraging.
Sorry, you're talking about if a teacher had to leave and a class wasn't available for a student, then,
No, I'm talking
Options.
full online school,
okay.
like full virtual.
But have
Or
Or
a
if you
high
have
option
it,
of the, any of those combinations, having
For
some.
cases where a student couldn't fit an AP course, we do have Wisconsin Virtual School that we pay for on an individual basis, and I've used it many times if I've had to. But we don't want that to happen,
It's
we
not
wanna
ideal.
squish it all into that student's
Agreed.
schedule if they want it, you know?
Right.
WVS is the base platform for online or RVA or any of the number of, they're pretty much the basis for a lot of the different full-time virtuals out there. But there's ways to attack, we came at it from the finance perspective, when students were living across the street from the high school and attending full-time virtual and open enrolling out. So that's how we bumped, just so you know how we bumped into that. It had nothing to do with the high school, it had to do with, they wanted this particularly. But then they also wanted to participate in our sports, but the way they did it, they couldn't,
Sure.
you know, based on that particular nuance, but we're working on that.
Yep.
We'll bring it around to.
But your curriculum is a big part of what you all do as well,
Yeah.
to help these kids achieve. And then I'll just say a little personal anecdote is, when my son was at Ben Franklin, I think he may have worked with me, maybe it was ages ago. There was a family situation where a mom had passed away, and my son was really tight-knit group with a young man who had this. Your team was phenomenal, and what was done, and then he transitioned from Ben Franklin to Riverside, and the continuation of love and support was top-notch, so we are very lucky to have your team here and the services that you all provide.
I think that continues to this day.
Exactly, so I'm sure it does, so, they put them, up for like various camps and whatnot, just the hug from the community and the involvement was superb, so, well done.
I have a quick question about the curriculum. Does the curriculum at all talk about nutrition and what they're putting into their bodies and how that affects their behavior at all?
That would be middle school health class.
So the,
Seventh grade.
Or 10th grade,
okay, because that's a real thing.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you're all hyped up on sugar, you're all hyped up on 4 Red Bulls and you can't concentrate, you know,
Busy die.
or,
I think we
No, or the red and blue dye,
They try to
I mean,
bubble
we
it
definitely
to the
use it
10th
in
grade,
individual
it's my first time doing
I
one.
mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about the
Yeah.
basic human body, like, are you
Right.
sleeping, are you
Yes.
eating healthy, are you?
environmental stuff, yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
And those are things I think too we coach parents on when we're having parent meetings, because our kids are little, right? They're not packing their own lunches, they're not making their own breakfast, but when we're problem solving, I think those are conversations we're having too, like you said, like, what time is your kid going to sleep? Like,
Right.
tell me about like their eating, because you're right, like how you take care of your body
Are they
affects
on their phone for
everything else.
47 hours a day?
That's the biggest thing for at the high school level,
Yeah.
it's like, where is their phone located when they're sleeping?
Yep.
Yeah,
I asked that question and it's like, it's, wow, you're right, it's right,
Yeah.
you're sleeping with it on your pillow, not good.
And that was our first parent book club book, was The Anxious
I
Generation,
know,
which if
I
you have
saw
not
that.
read,
Great
like,
book, it's reading it right
I know, I
now.
wanna read that one.
It's very
it opened
good.
up a lot of
Great
like
my
book.
shopping cart.
really important discussion about like the impact of technology, like
Oh, yeah.
on our mental health and how like
Yeah, look
the
at
big
that.
impact. Yeah. I'm glad I read this one because there's just a lot of data. I'm an audiobook person too, but I'm glad I physically.
They let you download it. It's got the downloadable PDF,
Oh.
just so you know.
On your phone.
Good to know.
To highlight it too.
I know, cause I like let mine out today. I'm like, it's highlighted and written in. And she's like, is that okay? I'm like, well, it's not my diary. Yes, you can take it, but like, I like highlighted that thing all over the place because
It's a great
it's really interesting.
It's my second time through it.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really good.
Has the phone policy helped at all too with behavior, especially at the high school?
That's what we.
That's awesome.
It was an amazing change, I think, and the kids complain to me about it all the time. But
They
they're
complain to
getting-
me too.
They're getting it, and I think they're changing, they're adapting, and then they're like, they're not fighting it anymore.
And they're not dying, there's
And
no
they're
deaths.
And so like,
Because of not having.
This comes up in the Anxious Generation. Actually, in the book, they actually lay down and they give you dates and times and years that you should do this in social media.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful book that way because
Pretty fun stuff.
the data sets that they give, I mean,
Yeah.
just to piggyback on your, I'm very impressed with the book.
Yeah,
I forget who recommended it to me.
And
Yeah, it's a good
with the new cell phone policy, we're not there yet with, complete success, but it's going well, I would say. It's just, it was uncomfortable for the kids for a while and they're getting it. Luke Langer got a shout out from D'Amato earlier, but he's been kicking butt with he's the cell phone, watchdog at high school. No, he's doing great work and the kids, he's got a good approach, so the kids aren't fighting
But
him.
the brilliance of being able to offer the kids Spotify through their Chromebooks, like you hit them where the first
Yeah.
emotional reaction both my children had was, I like to study with music and how am I gonna meet that need? And so by having the music through their Chromebook, take away a lot of the fear of what they needed their phones
I
for,
was-
so.
Right.
I was doing lunch duty at the high school maybe 2 weeks ago or something, I'm walking around, the cell phones are coming up, says, well, you're in charge of everything, can you give us our cell phones back? And I said, well, I was born in 1971, I didn't have a cell phone until
Look, I forgot just
a long time, like 30 years. And they were like, how did you do that? I said, I had phones with cords, so you're talking to the wrong person.
I will say too, in private, in my office, I've had a couple kids admit to me like, it was a good move.
Oh,
Yes,
totally.
of course.
It's definitely helped me. But they're not gonna
It's
say that in
less
front
of
of
a
the class.
distraction for them too, and a
They
stressor
said
for them too, it's just like, okay, now I can focus and it's.
And they know that
and it's
everybody's off, so they're
standard.
not missing anything.
Right,
That's
no
right.
FOMO.
It takes amazing willpower to not check that notification when it's sitting on your desk.
Yep.
I don't care if you're taking an intense test, like you're trying to
But
recall,
even for
man.
adults, you can do settings on Outlook.
Totally.
I work in the business world, I don't wanna know every time an email hits my inbox, so I don't do the notification, I suppress it. When I'm done with my task, I flip in, so all the stuff they're learning is helping, gonna set them up for success.
It will,
Right.
it will,
Good job.
Impulse control.
yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions for?
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you
Great
very
work.
much.
Thank you.
Very, very
enlightening. I learned a lot,
informative, so
so-
thank you.
Great job, everybody.
Appreciate the
Well
work
done.
it took and your time to come in tonight.
Yes, thank you very much, we appreciate it. Okay, and the next item on the agenda is OFAC
Mr. Helps,
update.
for my little cue for you. I got a cue for you.
So oak boxes, when we talked about this a couple months back, we had 3 that we were looking at doing, we've got 2. I don't know if that was included in those, but we did have pictures where they were taken. One of them, so one's in the front entryway, one's over by the gymnasium. The third one that we're gonna be doing is out by the stadium, is where the location's gonna be, we haven't put it in yet. Mainly we just wanted to make sure the weatherproofing was good, the weatherproofing's good, they're okay, we just haven't put it in yet.
Okay,
That one's gonna be the last on the list.
Awesome.
all right. And then moving on to the Power School and Discipline Structure update.
So I think, Isabel might have included the 3 on there, maybe not. Really, we met as a committee for Power School that really converted into more of a discipline conversation, making sure that systematically we're aligned to all 3 levels. And we came up with a game plan of what we wanted to do. And really, it's gonna be 3 steps initially that we wanna get taken care of. The first and most important part is align a behavioral flow chart at the elementary school. And if a kid does this is what's gonna happen, because right now they haven't really had
There's no
one.
standardized, yep.
So we're gonna standardize that, there was one sample through Valley View that Jenny had Tomlinson, and we're gonna see if that works. The elementary principals are gonna be meeting next Friday as a group, and they're gonna talk through if they wanna do any modifications or just pilot that one and roll with it. Cause up to this point, there really hasn't been anything, it's just been, I've done this, the kid does this is what we normally do. Well, let's get it systematic, cause we wanna make sure that we have uniform experience at school to school and level to level, so, and then that also aligned to what we're doing in middle school and high school too. So that's gonna be the first step of the process. The second part of the process is getting the training for Power School input by teachers and then admin and what it looks like. So right now, again, our admin are doing some of this, admin assistants are doing some of this, we actually have another assistant that's doing some of the input into Power School, so there's it's not systematic, it's not the same, it's not uniform, the process is.
Standard, yep.
Yeah, so what we wanna do is make sure we're taking what's going on in the high school and the middle school, especially in the high school, and really take it backwards through all the levels. And that's gonna mean we gotta train our teachers and our admin on what that looks like and how to do it. The teachers are gonna be the ones that are gonna program this. Because one of the things that, and I've done this at every school I've been in, and David and I talked about this before too, is when we have handwritten stuff, in this day and age, it has a tendency to get transferred and translated differently than if the person that's actually writing it does it themselves. And it's a uniform process. So that here's what we've got for an expectation of what you're gonna plug in, here's how you're gonna do it, here's the format you're gonna use. And that's gonna give us better data on the tail end of it that we can use for when we break down whether the kid needs help. So that's gonna be the next most critical piece, and we're actually started that already. We started to work down that process of training, we've got a couple of elementary principals getting trained through it tomorrow. So that's gonna be where it starts, and then we start training the teachers on how to do it, and have those same type of log entries. It always seems like a more ominous process than what it really is, because it's
Sure.
different.
And once people get the hang of it
I
and.
think it's just coming down to simple definitions and what do I do and how do I standardize this? Because it all comes back to the data for the story that you're trying to measure.
Bingo.
Yeah, one thing, when you're systemizing, let's say for example, elementary school, and they all come to the same middle school. That's
And the
the same thing
expectations,
that Mr. Halverson did with the safety pieces are now common throughout the district. Instead of sort of hodgepodge, it's now the same everywhere, including CE and RAC.
And same with attendance codes,
Right.
and using codes that aren't good, violating.
So when parents go
Sure.
from being elementary parents to middle school parents, they're gonna have the same codes, the same systems, the same processes, and the same transition to the high school. So it's been a big lift, but it's a lot of good work, but the system structure, having 2 additional APs, you know, one in the middle school, one in the elementary addition, they're definitely leaning into this pretty heavy, these pieces right here.
And
Along with the other APs, of course.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. The last piece of all this stuff, so once we've got the behavioral flow chart line, so we've got all 3 levels, we'll have a behavioral expectations flow chart. We get everybody trained on the process, how to put it in PowerSchool, then we get the feedback piece. So then we're gonna look at the third component of that is what do our students are concerned, you heard the counselors talking about here, what are our students' concern dashboard look like and what is it each building and each level are gonna need specifically. So once they get that, then we figure out what the needs are, then we know how we can help the kid. So that really would be the all 3 big steps for the discipline process that we're gonna have in place by the end of the year. So I think those are some really big changes and incrementally going step by step. That's the way we wanna take them to really eat that elephant, because that's gonna be something that is gonna have big dividends in the end once we figure out what we can do for kids behaviorally. Long term, so this is one of the conversations that's come up, because we've had this talk before about majors and minors. My dislike of that language because of just how vague it can be. I worked with Dan Bauer on this at the end of last week, and some of the stuff that he's put in there that tie into it, including our athletic code of conduct, are 20-some years old. And they're built into that process so inherently that if we were to come in and say, we're gonna start over, we'd be starting over a whole lot of other different connected processes. So I think instead of saying we're gonna get rid of the major minor language, we're gonna continue to fine tune with each one what they look like.
Define.
Yeah, so that we can still utilize the process that's in place, we don't have to necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater, we can utilize what we've got and still get the data we need from it, instead of just saying we're gonna get rid of it. So that's kind of where we've been going back and forth on it. We're gonna be also long-term cleaning up the power teacher side with the inputs for the teacher, because that's a lot of extra stuff that's on there that quite frankly, they really don't need because they're not dealing with it. Some of the connections to what we have for state reporting, they don't get involved in that aspect of it, so we're gonna just clean that part of it up. And then, even more so, we're gonna clean it up on the admin side too, because there's other stuff in there that's duplicated for state reporting that we've got through PowerSchool itself that we're gonna clean up too. And then the last piece that we're gonna be looking at is really the burden or the responsibility of who this falls on. And we've had some very, very direct conversations about this from, again, my standpoint is, this is an administrator's job, this is their role, this is their protected class of employee that needs to deal with this shouldn't fall on the assistant shoulders for doing this. So that's been a very open conversation as we're gonna be moving forward, that is gonna be less of a responsibility on their job duties and expectations. Because quite honestly,
For the administrative assistant.
for the administrative assistant, that's an administrator role, and that's an administrator job.
I would say the administrator can put it in and then maybe the admin is the one who puts the reports or says here's your anomalies or does some preliminary analysis for them,
But I think them plugging that in the system and actually doing the log entries themselves, it's moving away from that is going to be better. And for sure, it's mitigating liability.
well, likely they are involved in every one of those scenarios, so they have access to information to do the interpretation and align to what the standards are. where you don't have an error with somebody just quickly moving through and checking a box.
You got it. So that's gonna be, I think, at the end of the whole process, us going the direction we're going with the teachers logging it, the administrators dealing with it, that's gonna take a lot of that burden of them off of their shoulders. Cause that's, again, it's they're doing it right now, but it's not the job expectation they should have to deal with. So that was one of the last things that we talked about.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that.
Are you feeling supported, like they understand the value, or is that why it's an active conversation? 'Cause
It is, I think there's some blowback basically tied to, it's not that we don't trust you, what we're doing is we're trying to protect you.
Mhm.
And I think it's coming more across of, there was worry that we're trying to take their job away. No, we're not trying to take your job away, we're trying to protect you in your job.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that we don't trust you at all, it's not that 100%, but this is not what your job should entail.
That's
You know,
a,
it's
it's a
not that level.
liability at this point and
Yeah.
not a capability.
Yep, and for us as administrators, you know, and one of the things I always say is we are a different class, and it's not like classes, but we have protections in place for us as licensed professionals that they don't have. And as a district, we'll obviously protect them if there's any kind of cause or anything like that. But when it comes to if there's an error made, you know, if somebody enters something wrong and all of a sudden there's a liability tied to it, we're protected, they're not necessarily protected, and that means it could be problematic for our job.
There's words, there's names, there's a lot of different categories, protected classes. There's a lot of pieces that,
Privacy that just needs to be.
absolutely. Federal education, I mean, FERPA.
FERPA.
So, I mean, HIPAA, FERPA, I mean, it's a lot of different working pieces in there, that necessitate the change. But we're not looking to eliminate any jobs while making this change, just making
It's
it,
one small aspect of what
Yeah.
they do, but also they probably feel informed and trusted with this information up to date, and so the shift and change, just they need to know it's a risk-based information, not personal.
Right.
Right.
Interesting.
you know, we
It's similar.
can't run a district this size without, you know, a healthy amount of support staff. You know, we have certified staff, we have
Yep.
teachers, administrators, and then any number of different
There's probably
support
something
staff.
else that an administrator doing that could go to an assistant and just flip flop and switch.
Right, if there's a time issue
Correct.
to figure out what else can be
Yeah. Which,
taken off their plate.
and really looking at performance of a work study is that's a great segue to some of the conversations we've had about doing work studies. With Springstead has been one that I've used in the past before, where it's like, how do we balance out one admin assistant's role versus another admin assistant's role when they're getting paid the same, but this one definitely has a higher workload than the other one. So you do a work study to try to figure out what are some of the things that we could take off of this one's plate to add to this one's plate. And the same thing goes with administrators, it's like, that's really a function that you don't really need on your plate.
Right.
Where can we push that off with somebody else? So that's been conversations of like, where do we wanna go and how do we wanna do it? And part of the conversation is we start where we're at here to see whether we can shift some of those hours and shift some of that balance, but then back to ROI again. What's our return on the investment that we're putting in when somebody's got 60 hours and they probably could get it done in 40 if we had the balance of someone who's doing work at 30 hours and they could get it done in 40 and you know, that savings and cost savings.
Very good. Thank you, and I do appreciate that systematic and standardizing, and I think it's gonna make it a lot easier going forward. Any future agenda items from anyone here that they would like to see at our next or following meeting? The only thing I wanted to do then is we have our scheduling our next meeting.
And they're making it before you do that.
So, so the motion to adjourn.
Do you have any topics that you wanna cover?
So the only thing that I had was just notes for myself. I know that, you know, we had Alec present last meeting.
Yep.
And I just wanted to follow up, and maybe you know the answers, but I know he was looking at new hires and he was looking at that event, October 15th, I think, the family workshop. And just kind of, does he need more support?
Yep, so he just sent me a message tonight about it's basically IEP Family Night. And we've got a flyer, I just put on the flyers of interest and I'm gonna be posting on social media too.
Okay,
But the date, he established, let me look right now. because he did finalize that with that organization. And it is going to,
There's some other things that Alec is working on that I think would be good for the committee, for example, 4K wraparound and preschool. So there's some, I've been part of some discussions, broad-based discussions about 4K wrap and preschool that are gonna span not beyond just Alec and special ed, but you know, so I think that's something that could definitely be a future agenda item.
Sure.
We can talk to Alec about it. And you can just write 4K wrap, preschool.
Is that more curriculum based or is it really student services?
Nope, it's student services.
Okay, good.
Nope, it's definitely, it's definitely gonna be student services for sure.
Okay.
100%. Because CE and Rec is involved as well.
Sure.
So there's a
That makes
crossover with staffing
That's
and,
okay.
yes.
November 6th. It's
Okay.
going to be that night, it'll be at Ben Franklin, and it won't just be us present for that, that's who we're gonna be inviting now is for our family with students and IEPs, but also it's gonna be other local schools, it sounds like he's got the invite out to their special ed departments.
Yes, wonderful.
So it's gonna be,
Call that IEP.
IEP.
yeah,
So what are the other schools, what are they, it's just involve other schools, like other families
Yeah.
and community?
What's the location of that?
Ben Franklin, and the event is WSPI, and I'm thinking it was in Wisconsin, Special Education, and I can't remember the other two of the acronym, but
This is the first time they've ever done this.
November 6th.
Time? 5 o'clock,
Oh.
6 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember seeing that in the past.
I mean, I'm gonna
I'll
actually
leave it at this.
I think our most active part of the entire webpage are these flyers of interest. I've gotten so many of them, that we've been posting them as they've been coming in from different communities, organizations like Girl Scouts, and like we had Phoenix Golf for their tryouts tonight. It is 6 to 7:30, Wednesday, November 6th, at Ben Franklin. And they're gonna have free childcare there. I don't know if he's gonna have anything, snacks or anything like that, but by the sound of when he was talking to us a couple months ago, it sounded like it was gonna be a pretty,
Robust.
Yeah.
pretty big thing.
I think it's.
Alright.
Deer hunters.
Attendance feedback. That was the only other thing I was saying, because we were doing
Oh,
this.
yeah, you did the survey.
Yep, I did the survey.
Oh, yes.
I started gathering some results on it this afternoon, and that might be a good one to add on there too.
Okay.
I think there's gonna be a lot of stuff we can take back to the attendance committee and fine tune.
I did use it
Yeah,
and I did not find any instructions. I know people said they sent out links, I couldn't find them, so I just printed it. And I couldn't do it on my phone because you told me to do it on the computer and I just poked around until I found it and then I was like, I hope I did this right.
did it work? No,
Oh, but there was something that was missing in the menu.
So you can do it on your phone, but it's through your,
Yeah, through the web thing, but I just wanna, at home.
Can we schedule the next meeting?
We're still in line meeting with your drawing, we're still on our
I'm the one that ended 7.
Well, it's definitely in the.
Attendance, yes.
okay.
Okay,
Add that on.
so, I'm sorry, so we have no other future agenda items to add at this time.
We're good.
Excuse me, I need a motion to adjourn.
A motion.
I will second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And motion has passed. We are adjourned at 8:02 p.m.
Nope, we're gonna,
And then, I know that we,
You gotta turn the camera on.
That's not you.
Wow, so smart. Just for information.
okay,
No, we're adjourned.
But the camera's still running
Oh.
from our recording, so one of you two has to go.
are we,
Did you keep
We're
going
adjourned.
to,
We're adjourned.
we were gonna establish the days before we were adjourning.
No, because she's got 10
Yeah,
meetings
we're
she
good.
wants to schedule, so you just have to.
We should, if we do, we should just not put that in there.
No,